there's a story of the Baal Shem Tov that's written in Hatomim. Hatomim is a magazine that was put out in Poland during the time when when the Lubavitcher Yeshiva relocated to Poland right before World War II. And the story tells how the Baal Shem Tov became the Baal Shem Tov. You think the Baal Shem Tov was always the Baal Shem Tov? The Baal Shem Tov was a tzaddik nister, a hidden tzaddik. There were many such people in that era. Sometimes we call them Lamed Vavniks, the 36 hidden tzaddikim. And that was how the Baal Shem Tov lived. And at a certain point, we know the Baal Shem Tov had 3 phases in his life. Until he was 26, for 10 years from 26 till 36, and then 6 more years until he was 62. Is that the right math? 36 plus 26, 62? What? No, we don't know the difference. Okay. We'll get an accountant here. Help us add it up. So there was a mystic, a makubal, known as Reb Odom Baal Shem, another Baal Shem, not the Baal Shem Tov. And he had some information about the Baal Shem Tov's origins. Not just how he came into being in this lifetime, but in his previous lifetime. And he actually had the story of the Baal Shem Tov's previous incarnation recorded, and he gave it over to his son. Reb Odom gave it over to his son. And the whole long story described how his son hid these manuscripts in a field, and how the Baal Shem Tov discovered the manuscripts. And basically it described how once upon a time there was a simple Jew who lived in the holy city of Tzfas, in the northern region of the Holy Land, in the Galilee region, Tzfas. So this simple Jew was one day confronted by Eliyahu Navi, Elijah the prophet, who comes to him and says, I'm here from heaven to ask you, what did you do on your bar mitzvah day? Because whatever it is that you did, it caused there to be a big commotion in heaven, and I want to know what it is. This is what Eliyahu Navi says to this simple Jew. So the simple Jew tells Eliyahu Navi, it's private. So he says, look, I'm Eliyahu Navi, like you can tell, I'm like your doctor. You can tell me. So he says, what I did on my bar mitzvah day, I did only for Hashem. And therefore I don't want to talk about it to anyone else. It's between me and Hashem, that's it. And he refused to tell Eliyahu Navi. So Odom Baal Shem writes this whole story to the Baal Shem Tov and says, this was you in a previous lifetime. And you went through that entire lifetime refusing to reveal yourself. You would not become a public figure. But in this lifetime, we're not going to let you off the hook. You have to become known, and you have to lead Klal Yisrael. And it was very difficult for the Baal Shem Tov. The Baal Shem Tov was very private. He was not looking to be in the limelight. But he forced himself to accept his destiny and to become who we all know today as the Baal Shem Tov. And he changed the entire world. Everything that we understand today about Yiddishkeit was revolutionized by Torah Baal Shem Tov. Why am I telling you this story? Because I'm trying to think to myself, how in the world to convey what happened Yud Daled Kislev. Toshin Yud Daled, Zignei Chassidim came to the Rebbe to wish him a happy anniversary. And the Rebbe said some few choice words, very private words, describing what the significance, the deeper, the Teichen Pnimi, the deeper meaning of that day really was. It's not just Mazel Tov on your anniversary. The Rebbe said that a chasana, and I don't claim to have memorized the exact wording, but words to the effect of a chasana is an inyan klali for an ish prati. A wedding is a public event for a private individual. And especially in my case, the Rebbe said, as men hot mir, I think the Lashon was reingezeugen in Yonim HaKlolim. That through my wedding, I got dragged into a public life. And this day, therefore, said the Rebbe, is der Tag, was hat verbunden mir mit eich und eich mit mir. The day that connected me to you and you to me. In other words, what was the Rebbe saying? I think we've got to stop a second, pause, digest those words and their implication. The Rebbe said that if not for what happened on the day that he married his wife, we shudder to think, but there could have been an alternate universe, I don't know what it would look like, where in theory the Rebbe exists, but we don't know about him. Like the Baal Shem Tov could go on being a tzaddik nister, and he would still exist, but we wouldn't know about him. And maybe even he would have an effect on the world, and he would do all types of things that a Rebbe can do, but we just wouldn't know about it. We'd be none the wiser. Or maybe we'd know who the Rebbe is because he came from a famous lineage, so even if he hadn't married the Frierdiker Rebbe's daughter, you'd probably, maybe if you were into Chabad history, you would hear of him, but you'd probably think of him the way that people thought of the Rebbe. You would say he's from the Beis Harav, and he's, whatever. You wouldn't know a lot about him. He was a very private individual. And he wanted to be a private individual. And the Rebbe mentioned many times throughout the Nesius that it was against his nature to be a public figure. And how it depleted him to Farbrengen. When the Rebbe would Farbrengen so seamlessly, so fluently, you would assume it just the most natural thing. But the Rebbe expressed that it was difficult for him to go into that mode of being public. So I don't think we speak about this often. I haven't heard people speaking about this, but I think it behooves us to consider the fact that, at least in theory, the Rebbe is hinting to another reality in which the Rebbe is still the Rebbe, but the connection, at least the revealed connection, doesn't exist. The Rebbe could have gone on being an anonymous private individual instead of a public figure. Now, can I really fathom what the world would look like in such a case? No. And in fact, I might even argue that in reality there's no such scenario. It couldn't exist. It would be impossible. Just like the world could not go on existing if the Baal Shem Tov had not revealed himself. Because if the Baal Shem Tov hadn't revealed himself, I don't even want to say what that would have meant for the Jewish people. And if the Jewish people, I don't even want to say, would face such a fate, then where's the rest of the world? There's no point for existence. So there's not really a scenario in which the Baal Shem Tov doesn't reveal himself and the Rebbe doesn't reveal himself. Just like there's not really a scenario where Hashem decides that Matan Torah won't happen. Of course it's going to happen. It has to happen. But for a second, just appreciate the idea of what it means that it did happen. And that at least in theory, it didn't have to happen. In theory. So what does it mean that instead of it not happening, it did happen? It means, in very simple words, but I'll go deeper momentarily. In very simple words, it means that every single one of us here knows who the Rebbe is, knows that we have a relationship with the Rebbe, and I would probably say it's fair to assume, feels like our connection with the Rebbe is the most important relationship in our lives, and the most defining context for our own identity, and the most clear guide to us about what the meaning of life is and our own individual purpose. So all of that, your entire concept of why we're here and why we're alive, that was gifted to us on this day. The person who taught you, listen to me, the person who taught you why you live, he formed his relationship with you so that you could find that out today. Imagine you would go through life and not know why you live. Not know what the world is here for. That's what Yud Daled Kislev is. And don't be Siddish and tell me, hold on, it's the Rebbe's Simcha. Stop a second. The Rebbe's a father. And for a father, the greatest joy is the success of his children. Stop a second. The Rebbe and the Rebbetzin want you to own your identity and to know who you are. They want you to understand that your identity, your shlichus, your special purpose in the world was enabled by what happened on this day. Now let me go a little bit deeper. I already started to go a little bit deeper. You know, the Chiddush of Dor HaShvi, I think, is that the Rebbe redefined the Chossid-Rebbe relationship. From day one, Yud Shvat Tavshin Yud Aleph, the Rebbe said that I'm not going to be a Rebbe the way that you're used to it, where he does all the heavy lifting and you guys just watch and applaud, stand in awe. The Rebbe said this is going to be a partnership and you're going to be empowered and you're going to work. And not only are you going to work, but you're going to finish the job, you're going to bring the Shekhinah back to this world, you're going to bring Mashiach. That was day one that Rebbe said that. You guys are going to do it. You're going to bring Mashiach. So in other words, from day one, we were empowered, we were uplifted. Now, I don't know if people really believed the Rebbe. I mean, judging from what happened, Chav Ches Nisan, Tavshin Nun Aleph, people probably didn't believe the Rebbe, because when the Rebbe said, guys, I was serious, you guys have to do this work, everyone pretended that they hadn't heard that for 40 years. For 40 years, the Rebbe was preparing us for our own greatness. The Rebbe was preparing us to step into our role and to be the leader of world Jewry. Jonathan Sachs, Olav Shalom, said, good leaders make followers, great leaders make leaders. I would go even further and say that in the past, the Rebbe's made Chassidim, the Rebbe made Rebbes. Shiner Rabbi Tavshin Nun Aleph, the Rebbe said something very strange. The fact that the Frierdiker Rebbe made sure that every one of the sons of the Tzemach Tzedek in Hayom Yom, in the biography, in the beginning of Hayom Yom, every one of the 7 sons of the Tzemach Tzedek should be called Kved Kedushas Admur, means, what is the implication of that? I would never say this. I would never dare think it. It wouldn't even occur to me. And the Rebbe said it means, what's the practical takeaway? That every single Jew in this generation is an Admur. But der Koyach und Ispashtus von Titul Admur. So the Rebbe is going around giving out the title of Rebbe to everyone in the generation. Kol Echad Va'achas, even the girls. That's a big bombshell. That's a bombshell. The Rebbe is telling us who we are. Wild stuff. And the Rebbe would say, maybe thousands of times, he's making you a shliach. The dollars, every time the Rebbe gives someone $1 was shlichus, was being deputized. He's making you a shliach, and shliach shel adam, kamei say, the Rebbe would add, mamash. But do we take that seriously? Say it in English. Say it in English. I am making you me. I am making you me. You are now me. You are me. Wake up. The Rebbe is talking not only to you, he's talking about you. You are me. But it's not so surprising when you realize there's another concept, another Chiddush of the Rebbe. Not only is it that every single Jew in this generation is a Rebbe and a leader of world Jewry, but there's another Chiddush of the Rebbe, and that is that we are all more closely related to Nesiderenu than a biological child. We'll talk about this Heitevis, but the Rebbe went on and on, making a point that personally, if I had been asked ahead of time whether the Rebbe should say these words, I would advise against it. The Rebbe invoked the words of our sages, Mazari b'chaim afu b'chayim. Just as his children are alive, so is he alive. Do you guys not understand the context of the Sforim trial? You have a biological relative of Beis Harav suing for what he deems to be his legitimate inheritance according to Torah and Lahavdil secular law. And the only argument against it is, well, there's this relationship that the Rebbe has with Chassidim. Very nice, the Rebbe has Chassidim. That does not trump the law of biology, al pi Torah and in lahavdil in secular law. It comes to the Rebbe and says, in this context, with a hot button issue, the elephant in the room is about biology, about being an actual blood relative. And the Rebbe comes in and says, Mazani b'chaim avu b'chaim. Chassidim are here. The Rebbe is alive because his children are alive. And it's not drush. It's not homiletics. It's to the extent that it affects the halacha. And not only halacha, but lahavdil, that umas ha'olam, seichel anushi, that Judge Sifton should hear this and say, you know what, Takir, according to American law, Chassidim are more related to the Rebbe than a child is related to his biological father. You all learn Perek Beis of Tanya. You know that the etzem, the essence of the father, is in the child. So the Rebbe looks at you and he says, Mein Kind, mein Zun, you are me. You are me. Chassidim always said, as Yad Chossid is a shtick Rebbe. But this is much deeper than that. This is not a shtick. This is not a piece of it. This is the whole. This is everything. This is our essence. Before Kinnis HaShluchim, the Rebbe would tell the Rebbetzin that the children are coming home. The kinder. Not the Talmidim, the Chassidim. The kinder, the children. So your mother and your father got married. And just like it says in the Maimer of Yud Daled Kislev, that the Frierdiker Rebbe said at the Kabbalas Panim of the Rebbe and the Rebbetzin, the famous Maimer Luchot Deidi, which all of you will learn, Mirz Hashem, in the right time. I mean, you probably already learned it, but I'm saying really learn it in the right time. And you're going to learn there, at the end of the Maimer there, he says the real point of the union of the Chossid and the Kala is to be Mamshech Koyach Ein Sof, the power of infinity. And where do we see the power of infinity revealed in the union between the husband and the wife? In their descendants. In the fact that they have children. The reproduction, the fact that something from nothing, a man and a woman can get together and create new life, this is a revelation of infinity in the physical world. So the Rebbe and the Rebbetzins revelation of godly infinity is right here, and here, and here, and here. It's you. And that's why the more you get to know yourself properly, the way that Chassidus Chabad teaches us, a real Aveda Pnimis, the more you get to know yourself as guided by Chassidus, the more you get to know the Rebbe. And conversely, the more you get to know the Rebbe, the more you get to know your true self. There's no contradiction today between knowing who you are and being a Mokusher. To the contrary, today we finally understand that you can't have one without the other. Because the Rebbe tells you why you exist. He tells you your mission in the world. And he explains to you that you're here to be an extension of him, like a child is an extension of a father. And that by going far from him, you're actually coming closer. Because what is the greatest closeness that it could exist is that no distance can separate us, because wherever you go, the Rebbe is with you. Nishmasei bi. So Yud Daled Kislev is a time to wake up to our own identity, the truth about who we really are. The Rebbe Shekinder. There's a story, I never heard it in Chabad, but it's a story that the Nayam Elimelech had a dream that the Baal Shem Tov was standing on top of a mountain, and he suddenly plunged off of the precipice of this cliff on the edge of the mountain, and he dove into the ground, and when he hit the ground, he shattered into 600,000 pieces. representing the general souls of the Jewish people. 600,000 who went out of Mitzrayim. That was the dream of the Ne'em Elimelech. Like I told you, I never heard the story in Chabad. Maybe someone could find a Chabad Makar for me. But it's a good story. And, they say that a Baal Shem Tov story, even if it didn't happen, it could have happened. And this one was a dream anyway, so for sure it could have happened. But what was the dream? That the Mesiras Nefesh of the Baal Shem Tov, his dive off of the mountain, was to put himself into every single Jew. What is a Neshama Klalis? What is Nesidareinu? It's not just an individual who leads a generation, but it's a deeper concept. It is the individual whose essence is at the core of every individual of the generation. And just like the Baal Shem Tov was Meiser Nefesh to reveal this, I hope you appreciate the danger which your father, the Rebbe, put himself into to reveal these concepts. Next week is Yud Daled Kislev. Last week was Yud Kislev. We all know that every time a Rebbe reveals new Seides HaTorah, there's another Kitrig, Milmaila. The Heavenly Court reviews it again and says, hold on, this stuff can only be revealed on a need-to-know basis. You got to prove that it's needed. That's how the Rebbe explains that even though the Alter Rebbe was acquitted in his generation, the Mittler Rebbe was again charged in his generation because he revealed more. And every time you reveal more, you have to prove that it's needed to reveal more. And in our generation, the Rebbe revealed stuff that was never revealed before. The Rebbe took information that the Frierdiker Rebbe told him was only transmitted, Rebbe Mepi Rebbe, from a Rebbe to his son, the next Rebbe. And what did the Rebbe do with that information? Think! What did the Rebbe do with information that is Rebbe training information? Who did he tell it to? He told it to you. And he knew what he was doing. He was training you for your destiny, and he was telling you who you are. And many times he said it clearly. When the Rebbe would tell a story about one of the Nesiim, the greatest story about the Alter Rebbe. I won't tell the whole story, you all know it. But the Alter Rebbe, in his highest state of ecstasy, is talking to God and saying, I only want you. I don't want Gan Eden. I don't want Elam Haba. I just want you. And what did the Rebbe take that story and say? What's the practical takeaway of that story? You should admire the Alter Rebbe for being so holy? No, that's not how the Rebbe taught the story. You know what the Rebbe said? That story is about every one of us. So Chazal say, that deep down my soul only wants God. The Rebbe says, I take it more literally. You and you and you and you. All you want is God. You know why? Because if the Alter Rebbe wanted it, that's what you want. What do you think a Neshama Klalis is? If the Rebbe wants it, then you want it. And if you're not in touch yet with how you want the same things what the Rebbe wants, so you're not in touch with you. Like the Rebbe told Moshe Yitzchok Hecht in that incredible answer in the summer of 1974 when Rabbi Hecht wanted to close up the school in New Haven. The letter is printed in Igris. The Rebbe writes him back and he says, I already fixed your problem. I sent you Moshe Yitzchok Hecht. He's writing to Moshe Yitzchok Hecht and says, I fixed your problem by sending Moshe Yitzchok Hecht. And the Rebbe says, but it's apparent to me from the tone of your hysterical letter in the previous letter, where he wanted to quit his shlichus and he sent the keys from the school, he sent them to Maskiris, he said, I'm out. The Rebbe says, it's apparent to me. Do you know what your problem is? You don't know yourself. So my advice to you is you should get to know yourself. And if you do, then from now on you'll see everything gets cleared up. It's incredible what the Rebbe says over there. The Rebbe says, your simcha yem yemis, matzav ruchai, and even b'tachin b'Hashem. That's, you read that? It took me 50 times reading that letter before the bomb went off. He told Moshe Yitzchok Hecht, get to know yourself and it will improve your b'tachin in Hashem. That's crazy, that's wild. You could tell someone, hey, have more b'tachin in Hashem and you'll have better self-esteem. The Rebbe told Moshe Yitzchok Hecht, if you would have the proper Chassidish self-esteem and understand the greatness of the Shliach who I sent, you would also believe more in God. Right? Because Amunah Tzadikim brings to Amunah B'Hashem. But we thought it only means our Amunah Tzadikim for the Rebbe. No, Amunah Tzadikim also means the Amunah that Tzadik has in us. That a father knows who his child is. and the greatness that his child is destined for. And a father's greatest fulfillment, a father and a mother, their greatest fulfillment is when their children live up to their destiny. And so our father and our mother, they gave us this mission. They said, children, you are royalty. You are our sons and daughters. You have access to powers beyond your imagination. Finish the job. Chai.